In this video, Thomas Lee from Fundstrat is sitting here telling you where Bitcoin can go in the event that a Bitcoin spot ETF is passed in the United States. You don't want to miss this clip. Check it out.
Well, if the spot Bitcoin gets approved,
Yeah.
I think the demand will be greater than the daily supply of Bitcoin. And so the clearing price, this is done by Sean Farrell, who's our crypto digital strategist, is over 150,000. It could even be like 180,000.
But that's only if the spot, only if the ETF gets approved.
Yeah, and
this is a big F.
a spot US, because
Right.
a spot Bitcoin ETF is approved outside
Right.
the US.
Okay, but if it's not approved, then are we just lingering around 29,000?
There's still upside counts because of the halvening next year. So you'll have a drop in supply again. So the clearing price has to increase, but it won't be six figures.
And with that, what's happening, Crypto Crew? Sean's coming back at you, another cryptocurrency video. Getting straight to it, taking a look at the Bitcoin price chart. What are we looking at? Bitcoin is still sitting around 26,000, and we're just going to look at the history. We're zooming out on the charts. This is on the weekly. So if we go back and we look at the 2000, after the 2016 halving, from peak to peak, from peak to trough, we're going to look at the time frame. We're going to look at what we can anticipate in the upcoming months. So this was the peak way back in November of 2013. This is when Bitcoin first broke $1,000 and spiked all the way up to roughly around 1,400 bucks, and then came back down and went into a bear market. And from the peak to the bottom was roughly 413 days. So note this, once it bottomed out, how long did it take for us to get to the next all-time high, which was December of 2017, around that $20,000 peak? That took roughly 1,071 days. So, and we had about a 6,200% increase during that time frame. So that is from the 13 peak to the 2017 peak. So now let's look at 2017. From the peak to the bottom, this took roughly 357 days. So we're looking at 413 days to 357 days. So give or take like 2 months. That is roughly the time frame we took to get to the bottom. So once we got to the bottom, how long did it take to see that ultimate peak of the cycle? 1,071 days again. So that's just, is it coincidence, or is this just rhyming almost exactly because of the 4-year halving cycle? Bitcoin is a computer program, it's software, and it's hard coded. So once we peaked up to the $69,000 peak, how long did it take for us to get to the bottom? Roughly 371 days. Coincidentally, right in between the previous two cycles, from peak to trough, 357 and 413, almost smack dab in the middle of both. So this is something to pay attention to. This is all rhyming. And right now, where we are at the current time of this recording, we're just 294 days, into price action after the potential bottom. The Bitcoin bros subscribe and think that this is the bottom. And for a lot of different indicators, a lot of different things saying it, fears of recession are being talked. Could that be FUD? Is that just smoke and mirrors? Time will definitely tell. But based on history, this is a good chance that this is the bottom. Now, taking a look and see when we could see this next cycle peak. If we go from the bottom to the end of this 1,071 days again, we're looking into October of 2025. So we have some time to accumulate. We haven't got back up to the previous highs yet, but the halving is in April of next year, roughly 8 months away. There's a lot of price action that could happen from now until then, but either way you cut the cloth, there is potentially a major price appreciation that could happen if history's any indication. So if we look at this and let's look at this upwards trajectory, and we spiked above it here, we spiked above it here, we came up and hit our head right here, and on the retest didn't really quite get back up to it. But after April next year, by this time frame, if Bitcoin does go up to these highs, you see how high Bitcoin maybe can get? Over $800,000. Is that what's in the realm of possibility for Bitcoin in the crypto space. Either way you look at it, this is a major buying opportunity. Look at the total crypto market capitalization, same thing. Even though there's a lot of fear in the market right now, a lot of fears of recession, look at the super guppy. What are we seeing? And you see the super guppy gets overbought in the peaks and then goes from the light blue to green to gray to blue to red, gray, and then you trade sideways for a little bit before you blast off. So we got the light blue, the green, the gray, the blue, the red, and now we're just trading sideways. We're after the red area, so we're similarly about right here. This is, 2019 time frame. So could we get overbought and see some blue in the short term? Potentially, or we could just trade sideways a little bit. There's a lull out. This whole area right here is a lull out area. Before we came into it, just traded sideways, blasted out of it. So right now, we came into this on trade sideways before we blast out of it again. So how long is this lull out going to last? Well, there's a good chance that after the halving, things could start to get ignited. So keep this in mind. And taking a look at a few Bitcoin charts, this is the 2-year moving average multiplier. And anytime that we're below this price, this green line, it's a buying opportunity. And right now we came back up and retested this green line and got rejected. So it's still a buying opportunity. At the current time of this recording, this green line is sitting at 31.9. That's the level we have to get back above before we get into that parabolic run up. Note, after every halving, we do come up and touch this red line every single time. We touched it here, we touched it here, we touched it here. And at the current time it's recorded, this red line is sitting at $159,000. So after the next halving, as the price action starts to go up, that red line curls up. So, when the halving hits, like the one in July of 2016, the red line was at $650. By the time this wicked up to it and actually touched it, it was $8,100, almost a 10x difference. So right now, it's up to $159,000, $160,000. So if this goes up, how high could we go? Looking at another Bitcoin price chart, the MBRB. Why is this important to pay attention to as well? So right now, it is still a buying opportunity. Every time in this green area, this was the optimal buying opportunity. We come out, we make a higher low, blast up, the price continues to make higher lows. Note, 2012 is the halving, 2016 is the halving, 2020 is the halving, and then 2024, which would be right here, is the halving. So if you look at all the halving years, which we're not there yet, we're typically out of this green area. And we could be coming back down to retest it. Like you see after the halving, we actually came back and retested this with the pandemic dump. 2016, we were already out of it and then went up and to the right. 2012, we were just getting out of it, but came back down into it briefly. So could we just be lulling out until 2024? Could we see a little bit of overbought and come back down, retest to ultimately put in a higher low? Yes, we could. And then note when this orange line wicks up to the red area, every single time is a sell opportunity. So either way you cut the cloth, once again, it is a optimal buying opportunity. And taking a look from plan B, as you know, this is the stock to flow model. This is one example of, there's different variations that he has, so shout out to him. But anyways, we're taking a look at this. After every halving, there's a supply shock. That's what the gray line, that's what these straight up vertical lines go. Every time there's a supply shock, that's what happens. Every time there's a supply shock. So we've seen this price action play out, and this is where we currently are right now. We're in this area. So this is a possible scenario. When the supply shock happens, you see that these lines are just going up, from 100, 1,000, 10,000, a zero gets added, right? So from where we are right now, we wicked up to this line, didn't quite make it up to the $100,000 threshold, which everybody was calling for. But over the next one, we're not going to get quite up to that $1 million threshold. But as you see, this is well over halfway to that. So this is calling for like a $700,000 Bitcoin price. This line might be around 500,000 to 600,000, but either way you cut the cloth, this is definitely a huge appreciation. This is one scenario. Now, there's a law of diminishing returns for that people have been talking about with Bitcoin. And if Bitcoin shoots up from peak to trough, previous cycle we went from about 3,000 to 70,000, which is roughly a 33x. Now the bottom of this cycle, well, not technically, because the bottom of this cycle was about 15.9k. If it goes up to 500,000 this cycle, then that's a 31x. So technically that is a diminishing return, but a huge appreciation from where we are right now. So what's your thoughts? Do you think that 500k is in the realm possibility? Looks like 100 is definitely programmed in, but how high we'll go, nobody knows. Right now, look at the Bitcoin price chart. Either way you cut the cloth, whether the price goes down or up, this is an opportunity, because if we zoom into the price action, we can see that Bitcoin dipped. If you buy anytime Bitcoin dips, whether it goes lower or goes higher, keep just buying on the way down, because you're just going to keep dollar cost averaging in. Right now, we're below that 200 moving average on the weekly. We have to get back above this. This doesn't look that great. We could see more lower price action before we see higher price action. Keep this in mind. And with that, I'm Sean with the Bitcoin Bros. If you guys like this content, go ahead and smash the like button. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and show us some love. We appreciate the support. With that, that's all I have for you today. And I'm out.